All right, well, that was almost 2 minutes. That was as much patience as I had. So we'll go with that. So I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight at the Lone Tree Arts Center for, I think this is our fourth public meeting on this very exciting project of advancing Lincoln Avenue. And tonight is kind of, I think, the most exciting because you're going to see all of this great work that the team has done up till now and a lot of culmination of a lot of work, a lot of effort that's led to what we're going to present tonight, which is really going to let us to proceed into our next important phases with NEPA. You'll learn what that means if you don't know that already, as well as what kind of process we're working with the state and the federal government to try to get this project in place. So thanks everybody for joining us. I'd like to kick it over to the wonderful Mayor Pro Tem Winshaw from the city of Lone Tree to give us some nice words to kick us off, if you would.
Thank you, Justin. Welcome and thank you all for joining us this evening. As you know, Lincoln Avenue and the I-25 Lincoln Avenue interchange are critically important to our region. From Parker to Meridian, Lone Tree, Highlands Ranch, and elsewhere in Douglas County, the road is a highly used thoroughfare. It is the one way we get to and from I-25. One complexity of this project is that it integrates multiple transportation modes like light rail, bus rapid transit, microtransit, bicycles, pedestrians, and of course, cars. You've seen the congestion during peak traffic hours, and we will far exceed the capacity, for the existing infrastructure in the not too distant future. That's why we're working so hard today to find those solutions that'll work for us in the future. In past meetings, we had asked for your feedback, your comments, and your suggestions, and you came through for us with many, many great thoughts and ideas. The project team has taken those along with their own ideas and input from stakeholders and created the plan that we'll be sharing with you this evening. I'm grateful for your contributions as we value the public's voice in everything that we do. We're fortunate to have the talented planning team as well, who has created an excellent plan to address the important transportation needs for our regions. So thank you. And I will now introduce our most esteemed County Commissioner, Abe Layden.
Thank you so much, Mayor Pro Tem. You know, I'm in my 5th year of office, and I will tell you, each of those years, I've had the opportunity to work with Winshaw, and she is really spectacular. Let's give her another round of applause. Well, I'm not just a commissioner from Douglas County, but I'm from District 1, which is Lone Tree and Parker, and I am from Lone Tree. I could probably walk right down the street. So I'm biased, and I really love Lone Tree, and I love Lone Tree residents. You all are so smart and engaged, and no flattery intended. I know you show up to our meetings, you ask really good questions. So I'm glad you're here. You know, Douglas County, we have about a $700 million budget, and more than half of that we spend on transportation, so more than any other county in the state. And I see really wonderful partners here, Marissa Harmon and Mike from Lone Tree as well, and wonderful to be able to work on such important projects like this together. I know you're going to hear a lot, but I just wanted to thank the City of Lone Tree, Denver South, Colorado Department of Transportation, Coventry Development Corporation, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, the Federal Highway Administration, Meridian Metro District, Rampart Range Metro District, the Regional Transportation District, and of course the town of Parker. All of this, I think, represents the partnership that we have in Douglas County that helps make this region so great. So thank you for being here tonight, and I'll turn it back over to Justin.
All right, well, thank you very much. Those were great and supportive comments, and we certainly appreciate the support from both the City of Lone Tree and Douglas County on this important project. So this is always the fun slide, right? The meeting logistics and agenda. I think the logistics are the more fun part, but we'll work through that. So today we're going to give a bit of a heads up. We're going to be providing first a project update. You're going to learn what has the team been up to, what are we looking at now as we move forward into these important next steps. We're also going to take some time to update you on some exciting projects that both the City of Lone Tree and CDOT have been working on. We got several comments at our last meeting about, for example, some very large potholes on Lincoln Avenue and some of the great work that the city's done to replace them. That's a minor one. We have some big ones too. But we are taking this feedback, and we're excited tonight to talk about some of those projects that we were able to complete. We will then kick it over to a Q&A session. This will be we won't kind of do Q&A through the presentation, but at the end we'll take them. We have them online. You can do this. You can see for virtual. We can take those Q&As, and we will be able to go through those both within the room and online, and we'll trade back and forth. And we'll have some wonderful MCs from the city walking around with microphones. Don't worry, it's not that bad. We'll hand it to you. You can ask us questions through that process. And of course, after, we'll give some ways about how you can stay involved. This is not the last time we're going to be presenting, the last time I want to hear comments. We'll continue to hear comments throughout the whole process, and tonight you can have some information on how to share that. So why are we here today? Well, that's a great question. But we are here today, and really, again, this is the fourth meeting, and the big tasks that we hope to accomplish today is really look at where we are in the preliminary design. So we'll talk tonight about how we have really refined what you saw at the last meeting and made it into something that we have gotten consensus from all of our stakeholders to move forward with. Again, we have some exciting updates about both projects. We have our partners at CDOT here to talk about an exciting project that is currently underway in design and is funded for construction. So those are the best kind of projects, and we're excited to talk about those. And finally, we're going to talk about some of the ongoing analysis. So we still have more work to do, more analysis to conduct. So tonight we're going to be taking feedback, and any feedback you give us will help us as we continue to move forward with some of that analysis. So this one's the more simple slide, really, but why have we decided that this is such a critical corridor to advance? I think Councilwoman Shaw did a great job of explaining, right? This is a very unique corridor. It is really the only corridor that goes east-west all the way from Highlands Ranch into Parker, connects to I-25 Parker Road. It is a very unique corridor and has very unique uses. That also is growing in this area. We all know Douglas County is growing. The city of Lone Tree is growing. If you've recently been on Ridgegate Parkway, you're seeing a lot of amazing new development happening. The couplet section, the very first residents that now live on the east side of I-25. So these are exciting times, but we also have to prepare and have the city ready for that growth. You will see we've done this historically. Years ago, the city was able to, before those housing came in, widen Ridgegate Parkway, right, to 6 lanes, have the road ready to accommodate our future growth. The same thing here. We're working on this project to make sure that as future development comes, as well as the needs of our current community, we can be ahead of the game and be ready to go when it comes. And so we're continuing that very strong tradition. I'm not going to read this entire thing. John has it memorized, I'm pretty sure, in his head, and you're going to get to hear from John in just a minute. But this is important. Our project purpose and need, we developed this almost 2 years ago by now. This guides, right, every decision we make. How are we making sure that everything we're building and going to recommend meets really the big purpose and need? The summary, executive summary on the side, I'll read that. You can see how, the main goals are we want to enhance multimodal travel. We want to improve the operations on this corridor, not just at the interchange, but along Lincoln Avenue. We also want to address both our existing and, like we talked about, our upcoming increased congestion, and also improve safety. That one's at the very bottom, but it's actually the most important, right? Safety is always number one when we're working on these projects. How do we make it safer for our community while meeting those other goals? And finally, we talked a lot about this. The commissioner did a great job of thanking everyone. This is a project that is not the city of Lone Tree alone. This is a regional and statewide significant project. And so you can see all the different stakeholders that have been with us throughout this process have given us great feedback. And I highlight a few of these. Of course, we have the Colorado Department of Transportation, who's here tonight and is critically involved in this process, as it both is right on the I-25 corridor, but is also critical to our future needs together. And our development partners, both Coventry and Meridian Metro District, which we have representation here tonight as well, making sure that all of these improvements, you're going to see there's some impact, right? Whenever you do new projects, new builds, you have to impact certain areas. And so there is impacts to both of those metro districts, and we've worked together as a team to try to find a way to make the best project that will meet all of their needs, as well as meet that purpose and need that we just talked about. And finally, you can see the rest of our partners. The one I also want to highlight, Federal Highway Administration, right? That is a very important stakeholder, because all of this project will eventually have to be approved by the Federal Highway Administration to be able to move forward to get funding. I say that one statement, that's a very lot of work to have that happen. And we're working through that tonight. You're going to hear about how that process is going to happen and where we're going to be going from here over the next few months to get that federal approval. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to John Chesser, who's our project manager and with Wilson & Company.
All right, I'm going to do a quick check with our folks online. We have Anna Marie who's monitoring the chat and everybody online. Anna Marie, are we still connected? Is everything working well on your end?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you much. Thank you much. Once again, I have the honor of representing a very robust project team of specialists and experts that are working really, really hard on this project. A number of different processes are underway. Those processes need a lot of things from each other. And they're all going to come together at the end. As Justin mentioned, we have approvals that we are seeking at the end of this process. They're going to allow us to go into final design and construction. Before we get there, we have to answer a lot of questions for a lot of different folks. So we're going to get into some of that detail today, and we're going to let you know what we've been doing and what we have coming up between now and some of those approvals. So some of the folks that are on that team are in the room today. So whether you're online or here with us in person, when we get to Q&A, we have specialists here in the room that can help answer some pretty detailed questions if you got them. So don't be shy. Get those questions ready for us. All right, this is where we left off in March. March was our last public meeting for this project, public meeting number 3, and where we presented the results of the alternative screening process and what the recommended alternative was. That's this. It takes advantage of the existing partial cloverleaf interchange at I-25, adds a grade-separated intersection at Havana, and connections to the east to Zenith, connections to the south to the future upcoming city center development, connections to the north to Meridian, and a flyover from southbound I-25 to eastbound Lincoln that serves a very important high percentage volume of traffic that are wanting to go east on Lincoln. This was found to meet the purpose and need that Justin walked through earlier and address a number of the concerns with the traffic that was being modeled out to 2050. So this is where we left off. But it wasn't just the engineering design. We were also looking at multimodal. Multimodal's been forefront on this project from day one. We're not, designing the project and then force-fitting multimodal connectivity, trail connectivity in at the end. That's not the case. We started at the beginning with a need and a desire to enhance connectivity, to provide more options for folks to travel this corridor, travel across I-25 in whatever mode is most comfortable to them, and it has remained a focal point of our project. So this was shown last time, and this is it's a skeleton view of multimodal connectivity to a number of the destination points throughout the corridor. In March, we notified everybody that the city had applied for Dr. Cog funding for the first phase for the multimodal connectivity piece of the project that I showed on the last slide. I'm happy to be the one to announce, although maybe somebody else should, that about a month after we met with everybody, the city was awarded those funds. That is a huge deal for this project. Momentum cannot be understated. The ability to have that money for construction, for early implementation of multimodal, shows just how serious we were that this is a huge aspect of the project. And we're really excited to be working with the city and the county to advance this aspect of the job. So we're already acquiring money for what we're doing here. And as Justin said, projects with money for implementation are the very best ones. So we'll be seeking just a little bit more, but we're off to a tremendous start. So please congratulate the city on a very successful application. In the March, we also talked about what was upcoming. This is the first piece, right? NEPA and preliminary design was what we were about to embark on. Taking the recommended alternative from March and studying it in tremendous detail, refining it, optimizing it, both geometrically from the design side, multimodal connectivity side, minimizing impacts, really striving to understand what we were up against. And the NEPA process side of that is one of the three parallel processes, and it deals with studying the environmental impacts, built and natural environment, that the proposed action could have. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the work that particular team has been doing since then. We also said we were going to continue design. Where we left you was a very conceptual level of design. We're moving into preliminary design, being able to refine and optimize, look at ways to make sure we're meeting all the stakeholders' needs, continuing conversations with our great stakeholders, and we've been doing a tremendous amount of that, so you're going to hear some more about that. But this is where we left in March, okay? The next slide's going to show you the design concept as it sits today, and it's going to look a little different. All right, a lot of the elements are the same, but we've refined some things based on conversations with our stakeholder partners. First thing that probably jumps out at you is we now have a loop ramp in the southwest quadrant of Havana and Lincoln, whereas a few slides ago, and I'll just go back to it for fun, we had a CD road, a collector distributor road that was taking folks, connecting Havana and Zenith to the east. Let's talk about that design refinement, why it doesn't exist, and why we have a loop ramp now. So we sat down with our developer stakeholders, with Meridian, with Coventry, to talk about City Center, to talk about what's coming in Meridian to the north, and what we could do in this design to make it the best possible design for everybody. One of the concerns, one of the challenges we ran into is, what do we do with that CD road on the southeast side? How far south does it go? How much space do we put in between? What kind of access do we provide off of it? How can we make sure that City Center and their plan for development can maximize use of that? Well, the answer ended up being, let's get out of their way, right? Let's open up all flexibility for City Center and their future plan to come in and utilize this area, which is their land, to the maximum extent practical, however they see fit, maximizing land use, maximizing the plan they have available, and also gaining some very nice traffic benefits out of it. So in the previous design, if you're in Meridian and you wanted to go east on Lincoln, you'd have to come south, use the collector distributor road, go over to Zenith, make another left, go up to Lincoln, and make a right. It's a long, out of direction travel, not a huge movement of folks, but this refines that and provides a much more direct path of travel. So if you're in Meridian in this concept and you want to go east on Lincoln, you cross Lincoln at Havana and you take the loop ramp, and there you are, you're on Lincoln. Done and done. So to do that, it required a tremendous amount of interaction and engagement with our stakeholder partners. They love this idea. This benefits them tremendously. It opens up maximum flexibility. We're not precluding anything that they want to do. They're not waiting for us to make decisions. We're not waiting for them. They can connect into Havana from the south, Zenith from the south, as they see fit based on what their plan tells them to do. And we still get the traffic benefit in 2050 that we needed to for this project to meet purpose and need. Right? This also minimizes some right-of-way impacts on the southeast side. And that's another huge component of refining and optimizing the design, as well as looking on the north side. So on the north side of Lincoln, we have a braided ramp system. If you're on Lincoln and you want to access I-25 north, that's one. If you're in Meridian and you want to access Lincoln to the west or I-25 to the north, that's another set. These all have to work together in concert to make sure folks have the most efficient path possible to get to where they want to go. That braided ramp system in the previous design was very conceptual, very robust. Our design team has worked really hard to minimize those impacts on the north side and really refine how many lanes are needed, what are the widths, how can we streamline the efficiency of this to minimize impacts to the north, and they're continuing to do so. What you see today is not the end, it's not final, right? But it illustrates a very tremendous step forward in optimizing what we can get out of it. Along with this comes a lot of traffic analysis, that is needed to support this. Does this work? Does this work in 2050? Does this accommodate the needs that we have? And the answer is yes. And that's what our team continues to work on. So a lot of work to do, right, as we go forward, but a lot of work that's been done. And I want to take a moment here. Justin said it. Commissioner said it. I'm going to say it again. This doesn't happen without great engagement from our stakeholder partners, specifically Meridian and Coventry with the city center to the south. We met a number of different times, heard their concerns. They're very clear about their concerns, which is great because you don't want gray area. And our team was able to come up with a solution here that accommodated everybody. And we're really excited about that. So this is just a bullet list of some of the highlights of what we've been doing on the design side. As I've mentioned, making sure that things work in 2050 has remained a goal of ours. Evaluating the CD road alignment, is that necessary? Where do we go from here? The braided ramp structure. This was all extremely important in setting the footprint for the project and the geometry for the project so that the other phases that I'm going to talk about in a minute can move forward. They needed this. I talked about how these parallel processes need things from each other. This was critical, getting to this point, because the other processes need it in order to be able to move forward. Still got some work to do as we move forward. Now with this geometry set, we can get into details on grading, drainage, where's the water going to go, how do we capture it, how can we partner with our landowner partners to the north and the south to make sure that we're doing this regionally, we're doing this together, and we're not getting in each other's way, as well as a number of other things. So really excited about the work that's been done. Hitting these interim milestones, these milestones as we go along are really great, and they're cause for celebration too. All right, the second process that comes through this is NEPA. I mentioned NEPA earlier. This is the evaluation of impacts that the proposed action could have on the natural and built environment. It is required. It is a federal process. We don't get to choose to do this. We must complete this. We must complete this in a very specific way so we can get those FHWA and CDOT approvals at the end of the day. And so we're working really hard with our CDOT partners and our FHWA partners to make sure at every step along the way we are doing things in accordance with their guidance. A lot of this, the field work has been completed. For those who drive the corridor, you may have seen folks out on the corridor, on the south side, on the north side, collecting data. They're analyzing that data. They have developed tech reports for a lot of the data. Those tech reports are going into CDOT for review as we speak. Those will all culminate in a NEPA document. That document's going to cover all of the resources on the right, all of the analysis, and provide conclusions about how this proposed action impacts the built and natural environment. That's going to allow CDOT and FHWA to determine, this is worthy of moving forward, or mitigation might be needed in certain areas. And we're able to mitigate for that and be able to move on. So again, folks who are running this process for the project team are here in the room. If you have questions, I encourage you to ask about it. For this project to really move forward in earnest, they needed the design I showed you earlier. We needed that geometry to be set. We needed that footprint to be set so these folks could evaluate the impacts, the right impacts, and be able to move forward. All right, the third leg of the stool. CDOT and FHWA have a process called 1601. It's Policy Directive 1601. Anytime there's a major improvement to an existing interchange, we must do this process. Again, required, it's not choice. And our CDOT partners have been phenomenal in helping us execute this step by step. It's a 7-step process. Each step requires a certain amount of information. NEPA is part of those steps. Traffic analysis is part of those steps. Design is part of those steps. Again, it's all connected. So we're in the process of doing this. We are meeting with CDOT. We're meeting with Dr. Cog, Denver Regional Council of Governments, who run the models, own the models for the traffic side of things and the air quality side of things. And we're walking through each step. Now, we can't get too aggressive with this. We can't complete certain steps until other parts are done. So it's very systematic. We got to do it in the right order. This is all coming together to realize a preliminary design, a NEPA document that adequately addresses the potential impacts of that design, and the analysis supports approval through the CDOT 1601 process. And because 1601 requires those other elements to be part of it, it's the perfect umbrella guidance for us to be going through this. This all ensures that we're going to get the right solution. There's too many checks and balances, right? There's too many people involved, too many great people involved for us not to reach the right solution at the end of the day. It's going to be implementable, it's going to be fundable, and it's going to work. And that's the whole goal of all this, right? Part of the 1601 process is a fairly recent addition to it are some thresholds that must be met for transportation demand management. The project is required to look at the project, not just how do I get vehicles from A to B. That's not enough. That's not 2023, almost 2024 now. We won't talk about that yet. But the 1601 process requires the project to be able to look at this. Now, it's not just the project, right? There are a lot of these strategies that you see listed here that the city and the county have been implementing in this area for decades, right? They've put together a framework of things. Our project needs to fit into that, connect people to those existing features that are already out there, provide folks with multiple options of how they get to those existing features, enhance them, add new ones if we can, right? This project is off to a tremendous start with this because the city and the county laid the foundation for it years ago. We are able to tap into that, and we're able to get people to where they want to be most efficiently. So there's a board on this in the back. Dan Rain, who's going to be speaking earlier, would love to talk to you about this in the future. So please don't hesitate to reach out to him. This is a very, very cool aspect of gaining approval for the project, and we're well ahead of the game here. This slide is just to articulate what I was talking about before, that all three of these processes must come together at the right times, meeting certain milestones, providing certain information in order for us to have a successful project to move forward into final design and eventually construction. And that's what we're here for. You know, we'll pat ourselves on the back when we get our NEPA document, right? That's a huge milestone. That is huge success, and it's going to happen. But that's not the end. This isn't the let's get a NEPA document project. This is let's get something built for the traveling public, right? And each of these steps are going to allow us to go after more money to build that and gain more support for what we're doing here and get that implementable project. So I'm not going to read everything here. Everything's connected as we go through. And we're going to do it all in the next few years. Where we are right now is in the middle of NEPA and preliminary engineering. By middle of next year, we are on track to have an approved NEPA document, have preliminary design complete, and have all of the steps up to that point of the 1601 process complete, which requires NEPA in one of the steps. So we're on track to have all that done by middle of next year, right? That's going to allow us to move into final design, which the city has acquired funding for. Final design is funded. Another huge step for us. We don't have to delay. We can go right into final design for what's expected to be phased implementation of these improvements. Now, if we get all the money all at once, awesome. That's fantastic, right? We can do this. Resources are tight. We're going to go after all the money we can in various ways. But if we don't have all the money to do everything at once, phased implementation makes a lot of sense. This project can be phased, multimodal with the money that has already been secured for construction, be that first phase. In order for the flyover to come in from southbound I-25 to eastbound Lincoln, Havana needs to be grade separated. It's got to be phase 2. Has to come next. Grade separating Havana allows you then to come in with the third phase with the flyover when it's warranted. So this can be phased, which is great from a funding perspective, allows us to go after all different kinds of money as we look to find ways to implement this project. All right, with that, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to let Dan Rain and Giovanna Toppi join me up here on stage. Dan is the mobility manager for City of Lone Tree, project PM from the agency side. Giovanna Toppi is project manager with CDOT, who's got some great things to share about the mobility hub. So I'm going to let you guys take it away.
All right. Thanks, John. Ladies and gentlemen, in the room and online, Giovanna Toppi from CDOT, Dan Rain from Lone Tree. we have some other project updates we want to give you. And John, thank you for mentioning. One of the things we heard last time was, sure hope you can get that multimodal going right away. It's really difficult to walk along or even cross Lincoln Avenue. So we did get that $9 million for construction. But we also heard if you're driving, the pavement conditions, whether it's the concrete sections or the asphalt sections of Lincoln, have been challenging. So this summer, our operations team led an effort for concrete panel replacement as well as asphalt improvements. So hopefully you all are having a much smoother ride on the corridor. With that complete, here's some new exciting news for you. We also heard a lot of folks really needing to, not having access to a motor vehicle and needing to gain access into Meridian, but also folks from Meridian want to get access into Lone Tree. Our Link on Demand is a free transit program that you can summon by using a phone app or calling the main phone number. And now we're going to be expanding that program into Meridian in early January. So we're very excited to, through a partnership, once again with Denver South, but of course Douglas County, and with additional funds from RTD, we're going to be able to provide that service for everyone in Lone Tree and Meridian. And you'll see the adjacent map there. So that also includes access to the new Amazon facility that's there. And with that, also Giovanna, she's so sweet. She allows us to call her Gio as well. So I warmly encourage you. Gio, would you mind telling us a little bit about the Lone Tree Mobility Hub?
I'd love to.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks so much for having me and for the opportunity to talk to you all about this upcoming CDOT project. As Dan mentioned, my name is Giovanna Toppi. I work for the Colorado Department of Transportation, and I'm managing this Lone Tree Mobility Hub project. Now, some of you may be thinking, what is a mobility hub? Well, CDOT's vision is that it's a transportation center. It's an area that emphasizes multimodal options like bus staying, Link on Demand, RTD's light rail, and bike and ped connections all in one place. It's an area where you can transition from one mode of transportation to another safely and efficiently. In other words, a mobility hub is a way to connect people to work and play. So at the most basic level, this project will be modifying these existing I-25 ramps just south of the Lincoln interchange to accommodate CDOT's bus staying service. It'll also construct a pedestrian bridge that'll span I-25 to connect the two transit stops, and as well as include sidewalk connectivity to existing and future development here in the city of Lone Tree. And for me, that's the most exciting part, the connectivity this project is bringing to the planned trail system on the east side of I-25 in Lone Tree's future city center. While this is a separate CDOT project, this mobility hub really is the perfect complement to the Lincoln Avenue interchange project because the pedestrian structure and the sidewalk connections will provide even more options to folks as they navigate through this busy area. So now touching on schedule and budget, currently we're still in the design phase of this mobility hub project. We plan to have shovels in the ground, starting construction by the end of next year in 2024. And as for our project budget, we're estimating $22 million for design and construction. And to wrap things up, I've included a link to our project webpage here. Please reach out if you have any questions about the project or comments. And before I turn it back over to Dan, I'd like to propose a question to those of you online and those of you here in the room with us. And that question is, what makes you feel safe when using transit facilities? As we're working through the design of this mobility hub to ensure that it's the best that it can be, and it's used, and it's meeting the needs of everyone, we want to know what we can do to make you feel safer. So whether you're a user of public transit or an avid cyclist, we want to hear from you if you have ideas for things that we can do. Because we know safety means something different to everybody. So we really want you to hear from you, and we want to get diverse opinions. So please visit our webpage, give us your comments, and we have a QR code, so if you need some time to think about it, do that and reach out to us. And if you're here in person, please come talk to us. We have a table in the back. We have some great renderings, and we have some swag to give out too. So thank you.
Thank you so very much, Gio. So with that, we have a Q&A session now for folks online and in the room. We always have the website as well. So if you don't get your question in now, we will reach back out to you. Make sure you post it or post it to the website. We also have a phone hotline to be able to reach folks at the city so we can have a conversation. And if you're going to grab that QR code as well, it leads you to a form for folks in the room or online to be able to provide those inputs as well. So with that, wouldn't it be great to open up the Q&A, and my partners in crime here, Zeke and John, have some microphones. And so why don't we start in the room with a question? We have a raised hand in the back.
With the addition of the Meridian as a part of the van pool, is there a plan to add more vans? Because right now, sometimes the wait is 30 to 40 minutes at peak hours.
Yes, we currently have two full-time vehicles operating with a third as a backup in case something happens to another vehicle. And we do implement that third vehicle on Fridays and Saturdays, which are our peak days of requesting rides. We will be expanding the fleet to include 2 more full-time vehicles that will be wheelchair accessible to be able to meet that demand. It's a slow rollout in January. We'll start advertising next month and really try to generate that activity. So thank you for that question.
A good question. Anybody else?
We have right here up front.
I got it, Zeke. I hear you.
What kind of things are considered environmental justice considerations for a project like this? I saw that box on the project.
Quite a few things. John, do you want to take that?
Sure, I can start. We also have folks in the room if you want to get into a more detailed conversation about that can answer it. But basically, a project cannot have a disproportionate or adverse impacts to disadvantaged communities. And those are defined in regulations and guidance. So our project is required to perform an analysis. CDOT has a very prescriptive way of going through and analyzing to make sure that they're not adverse and disproportionate impacts to disadvantaged communities. And we'll be going through that analysis in tremendous detail.
And there's also Colleen in back that we, if you'd like to give a little wave there, Colleen, thank you so much. You know, another example, one of the things we thought about with this project we were developing it is, sure, we got that funding for construction of walking and biking facilities, but that's in 2027. What can we do now? Part of that was the expansion of the Link on Demand program. Let's not have Meridian wait years to get access into Lone Tree. Let's start it as soon as we can. So through an RTD funding partnership with Denver South, with Douglas County, we're going to be able to achieve that in the short term.
Thank you. That's a great question. Other questions in the room?
How about online?
Yeah, Anna Marie, how are we doing online? Anna Marie, are we there?
We're not seeing any in the chat. We have a couple hands raised.
Okay, if folks that have hands raised in the chat would be willing to type a question into the chat, we don't have a mechanism for folks to speak live through the virtual. So if you'll type your question into the chat, Anna Marie will see that and we can come back to her in a minute and make sure your questions get asked to the team here. So while we're waiting on that, more questions in the room. Zeke?
Maybe a little unrelated to this project, but is there any update on the RTD lines down this way being on a more frequent basis? I think the train is now every 30 minutes, but in the past it was every 15 minutes. And I think the estimated resuming of the 15-minute cadence was supposed to be in October.
That's a very good question. Unfortunately, we don't have an answer for that, but we can follow up on that and include that update on the website and the city's website as well, too.
Yeah, Dan, our public involvement team is keeping a log of every question that's asked here, and we're making sure to get back to folks and respond to them if there's anything that we can't answer live. So we will do that. Anna Marie, has anybody typed a question into the chat for us?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make a clarification. If you are online, it looks like the chat function is disabled, but the Q&A box is active. So if you have that question, please go ahead and enter it into the Q&A section, and I'll be able to see your question.
Good clarification. I said chat earlier, so that's good. Thank you. Any other questions in the room while we're waiting for a couple questions online? Does Dorothy have a question for us in the back? It's quite the costume.
Careful, John. She'll kick her heels together.
All right, I think that's it for questions in the room. Anna Marie, anything that's come through Q&A online?
Yes. Okay. Most of the improvements seem to be on East Lincoln off I-25. Are there any noteworthy improvements to the westbound exit?
Dan, could you go to the slide that shows the current design, please?
Yes, sir.
So the individual who asked the question is correct. A lot of what you see on here, everything of what you see on here is I-25 and east, and that is the nature of a lot of the need based on our purpose and need for impacts. The off-ramp from southbound to I-25 to Lincoln will have some upgrades. We don't have those to show now, but the ability to access Lincoln, we're either going east or west, is going to remain easy to get into the right lane to get to where you want to be. So there will be some signage, there's going to be some striping, there's going to be some improvements made that way for folks who are wanting to go west from this interchange on Lincoln. And that, as far as improvements to geometry, that is where we stand with the project at this point.
One of the challenges, the limits of this project is from Park Meadows Drive to Oswego. And we all know that between I-25 and Park Meadows Drive, it's not a very long distance. We also have that RTD overpass that really limits what we can do with Lincoln Avenue. But as we've really working on the design, we're going to take a deep dive into the operations of Lincoln Avenue and Park Meadows Drive and really see if we can improve that intersection for all modes of transportation, whether you're walking, biking, or driving. In the back?
Is the city of Parker doing any study where we're connecting into Lincoln now, or are they going to, in terms of traffic volume in the future?
I'm going to default to my Douglas County partners.
Well,
Mr.
our
Art
group
Griffith.
with Douglas County, we're partnering with Parker to widen Lincoln Avenue from Keystone to Parker Road. And that project could begin construction in '24. They have some right-of-way acquisitions and a few hurdles. The section between, what is the boundary? Peoria, essentially?
Oswego.
I mean, not for this project, for the city is Peoria about.
Yeah.
From Peoria, First Street, but a little bit east of Peoria is First Street. From Peoria to Keystone, we do not have plans to add additional through lanes. We'll look at operational improvements, and the first ones we're looking at is intersection improvements at Chambers and Lincoln Road. So that's it.
Anna Marie, any other questions in Q&A online?
Yes. So a couple more regarding bike and pedestrians. So there's one here. Someone was hoping for ramps for bikes versus elevators. So questions on how that decision was made. And then will there be access to seeing where the proposed trail system will be on the east side?
Gio, would you like to answer the first question, please?
So I can touch on the ramp versus elevators. That was a conversation that we had with the city, and the decision was made, no elevators for this pedestrian bridge. We are having ramps just for a number of concerns with safety and maintenance, but we're going with ramps, no elevators. And Dan, do you want to talk about the trail connection?
So the multimodal funding, the needs of people walking and biking rose immediately to the top of our list when we were developing this project, and from comments from folks participating in this project. And so while we have the money for that, we can incorporate it in the design, but it has to be designed with the improvements. So while we have desire lines, and Mr. Mark DeVos in the back, he's our lead design engineer, we're continuing to work on the design and are figuring out where to put facilities. With the multimodal improvements, one thing we are going to look at is we're going to look at the feasibility of a new ped bike underpass between I-25 and Havana. Key values of these multimodal improvements is to connect the dots, to connect to the mobility hub, to provide great high ease of use, back of curb, separated walking and biking opportunities, not only along Lincoln Avenue to connect to the Meridian South, but across, as well as at Havana at a proposed grade separated intersection where Havana would fly over a tunneled Lincoln Avenue below it to allow for those grade separated interactions and limit, if you would, conflicts with vehicles or turning vehicles drivers.
Zeke, was there another question up front here?
Yeah, there sure was.
I just have a quick question. Does this require widening of the bridge across I-25?
Not at this time, no. In the back? Yeah. Hey.
So related to the bike ped underpass proposed under Havana, would that be basically skirting along Lincoln Avenue as like an adjacent facility, or would that be separated some other way, like via tunnel where you're not right up against Lincoln?
Let me address little parts of that, because you mentioned something about going under Havana, and what we are preliminarily looking at, and I'm just trying to get to the right slide.
Go back a little bit more. There it is.
Right now, what we're looking at is how do we reduce conflicts, provide the simplest facility. So it does lend itself, when developing this, that off-street bike paths and such would follow along the southern edge of the project. And if you would, bend down and around to Havana. Some of the ideas we're kicking around is to have an at-grade crossing Havana, but also a lower tunnel under Havana, so that we could provide the best access at street level and below for travel, and then continuing is to tie into Meridian. Now, the Havana, just to clarify, what's interesting is Lincoln actually rises to meet Havana. So Havana, in a way, will stay where it is, but Lincoln will go below. And we'll keep the ped bike facilities on the east side, the east side of that new Havana structure to cross into Meridian. And why is that? Because there's a lot of left-turning vehicles in the future that will be leaving city center to go west. And those are the ideas of trying to reduce conflict and provide those grade-separated facilities, and in particular, for all ages and abilities is our goal.
Hi, Dan. Over here.
Hey.
Hey, just a quick clarification on a question that was asked earlier about widening the I-25 bridge or the Lincoln Bridge over I-25. Minor widening for enhanced sidewalks. We got to enhance the facilities on the bridge in order to be able to get people across safely. So there will be some minor, as proposed, some minor widening to enhance the sidewalks and the connectivity across I-25 on Lincoln. Just want to make sure that we're good there from the design team. And then we did have a related question to the multimodal questions from the room here, came in online. Do we have renderings or designs on the bike ped connections and how those things are going to come together? It's hard to tell, admittedly, from the images what exactly the improvements are. So they're hoping we can speak more to that. I'll start and then kind of hand it over to you. At this stage of the design, we don't have those renderings yet. We will. As the design is finalized based on the geometry that you saw earlier, and we're able to work with our stakeholder partners, namely CDOT with the Mobility Hub, and as their design progresses, we will finalize the design of what those multimodal improvements look like and be able to have some renderings about how those connections are made. So that's coming. Look for that in the future. As Justin mentioned, today's not the last day. We'll be reaching out to everybody. So look for that as that comes along. And then, Dan, I don't know if you want to speak more to the larger connection points that are part of the
Well,
study.
there is one important thing that we're going to be really focusing on a wayfinding plan, not only for folks that are driving, but our folks that are walking and biking. And if you live in Lone Tree, or if you want to come on down and visit, we actually have launched a wayfinding pilot on the west side of I-25 in and around the Great Target. So if you come in on Lincoln Avenue, come on down and visit Lincoln Commons. Grab yourself some Five Guys or something else, and then you'll actually grab your bike and you'll see that we've implemented new buffered bike lanes, shared lanes, but also a wayfinding system so you can find your way around the city. Excuse me. And don't be afraid to give us comments on that, because that's a pilot that we look to extend citywide.
Thank you, Dan. That's great. Anna Marie, can you confirm we're not seeing any more questions come through Q&A? Is that what you're seeing as well?
That's what I'm seeing.
Okay, great. Any other questions from folks in the room? All right, Dan, I think we have the room for another half hour or so.
Yes. Folks, it's not too late to get tickets for tonight's showing of Dreamgirls. Doors open at 7. Show starts at 7:30. However, we do need to clear the room before 7. So let's catch up by the boards. Let's make sure, if we're not able to wrap up questions, that we can go ahead and wrap them up. And then we also have, remember, we have the QR code, we have the website, we have the phone number, and we are here to help advance Lincoln Avenue together. Thank you so much for your time and attendance tonight.